2 o'clock. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to my mother who's here with me. Wave your hand, Mom. And like Missy said, we do business together. She travels with me. She supports me. So I appreciate her, and to Shayna and to Tasha for having me here, and Missy for doing an amazing job, and the other speakers. Yes, my name is Shanice Wise, and I am a business expansion coach, but I am a mother. Yes. I'm a mother. Give it up for all the mothers in there. And it doesn't mean that you have given birth. You may be mothering someone, you may be an auntie or whatever, but give it up for the mothers. So today I'm asked to speak about being a mother and still following your dreams. How's that sound? So follow with me as I share a story with you. When I was a little girl, me and my brother, we would ride the bus home to my grandparents' house because my mother and my father, they worked. And we would be so excited because my great-grandmother lived at my grandparents' house. And she was a woman of so many stories. How many of y'all got grandparents that have stories? And I was 11 and my brother was 9, and we would get on the bus and we would be so excited just to get to the house to hear the stories. OMG, and my family is huge. So she would tell us about my grandfather and all of his 7 brothers and sisters and how they grew up and they played together. And they ain't have no money, but they ain't know it, right? And they just did so much together. They played in the side field and they traveled together. So we would be so excited every day, y'all, just to get over there. And I played the flute, give it up for the flute, and my brother played the clarinet. So we would be sitting at, give it up for the clarinet, we would be sitting at her feet, playing and talking and playing and talking. And then one day, y'all, I'll never forget, as I was getting on the bus, and it was dark and it was gloomy. And you know when you get that feeling, y'all know we mothers, you get that feeling. And I walked slow to the bus. I got on the bus real slow. I walked slow to my grandparents' house. There's a whole bunch of cars over there. The door was open. And I seen my grandmother sitting in her chair. And I said, Grandma, what's wrong? Grandma, what's wrong? And she looked at me with tears all in her eyes. She told me that my great-grandmother had died in her arms that day. And I was instantly upset. Y'all didn't come pick me up from school? Everybody was in there mingling and hugging and talking to each other, and I was angry. Who was going to tell the stories? Who was going to share with me about the experiences of my grandparents and my mother and all of them? Who was going to continue the stories? So her funeral came and it went. She died 2 weeks before she turned 102 years old. Wow. And then I was walking into my grandparents' house, and my grandfather was sitting on the couch. And I'm a Pawpaw's girl, y'all. I'm a Pawpaw's girl. And I sat next to him and I put my head on his shoulder, and he looked at me and he said, let me tell you a story. So then he started telling the stories. Then my mom started telling the stories, and guess what, y'all? I started telling the stories. And my great-grandmother's legacy has lived on and on, generation to generation. And we continue to talk about her like she is still in the room. My question to you is, what will your legacy be? When you're gone, how will people talk about you? As a black woman, as a mother, whose life will you have impacted the most? I have 3 questions to ask you. My first question is, as a mother, are you continuing to live your dream? Because most of the time, as women, we get so involved and wrapped into our children where we lose our own way. And you know, they grow up and they leave. I'm experiencing that right now. I'm struggling. My 10-year-old didn't want to kiss me the other day. I'm struggling, y'all. So that's my first question. Are you still living your dream? Or are you walking out your dream? Not your children's, not your husband's, not your mama's, but yours. My second question is, how are you managing your time as a black mother? So you can live out your dreams and still be an amazing mother. And then my third question is, what legacy are you going to leave behind? As I think about my journey and my road, it's been an up and down road. 12 years ago, we took my father to the hospital. 2 hours later, he was dead. We left him at the hospital. Never did I imagine that that would occur in my life. Because not only was I a Pawpaw's girl, I was a daddy's girl. So then, 6 months later, I got married. Not listening to what everybody told me. Y'all know how we do, right? Come on, shake your head. Y'all with me. Come on. Then after that, I had my son. And then a year later, I went through an horrific divorce. But in the midst of that, I still was following my dreams. Like Missy shared with you, I used to be an executive sales director with Mary Kay. I was the pink Cadillac chick, okay? When I was in Mary Kay, I earned 7 free cars, 4 of them being pink Cadillacs. Flew all around the country teaching women how to build businesses inside of Mary Kay. I was featured in Mary Kay's magazines and marketing materials. In 1 year, me and my unit, I had almost 200 women. We sold over $500,000 worth of Mary Kay. I was blessed. But on the inside, I was crushed. Because I was going through life. Y'all know how we go through life as mothers, and then we got to carry everybody and carry ourselves. But in the midst of it, I was still following my dreams. Because see, the dream that God has given me, the goals, the gifts, is to help change other women's lives that desire businesses. So I was still doing that, y'all, even in the midst of going through. Even in the midst. So that first question I asked you, are you still following your dream? It's a must. Do you know that the gifts that are inside of you are connected to other people? And if you don't walk in your gift, other people will not be blessed. Right. So those dreams, you gotta keep going after them. And then, so how do you do that? How do you do that? And that's the second question, the time management and the task management. How are you operating in your day? I teach my clients that all the time because people say women can't have it all. We can have it all. We can be successful. We can have babies, as many as you want to have. You can still operate in ministry. You can still do your thing. You can be that 360-degree woman, right? But it is all about managing your time and the task so you can be everything that God desires for you to be. And then the third thing, your legacy. I think about the ups and downs of my life, and I still got a long way to go if God says so. And I think about how when I went through my divorce and how I hit rock bottom. Anybody ever been on rock bottom? Come on, y'all. And through the divorce, I spent a whole lot of money trying to get out of it. I lost my home. Had to fight for my child. And in the midst of it, guess what I was still doing? What was I doing? Still following my dream. Because people were watching me like people are watching you. No matter how old you are, if you are still living, you are still breathing, God still has work for you to do. So when I think about how I have evolved, y'all, back in August, I got remarried to the man of my dreams, who God created for me. And I say that humbly, but also grateful. because of all that I went through, and even in the midst of it, still remembering what God had given me the task to do, which was to help change women's lives. So what are you going to do? After you leave this event today, are you going to continue to sit on the gift that God has given you? Or are you going to figure out how to get out there and do what you need to do? Because see, your tests, your trials, the tribulations that you have gone through, they're not for you. They are for you to share with other people and to help change other women's lives. And you heard Ebony say, Black Girl Magic. We are bad, y'all. We are bad. We carry so much. And what do? We get back up and we keep moving and we keep shaking. But now we are in a season for us to rise up. We are in that season for us to be able to do and to be whoever it is that we desire to be. There is an African-American woman running for president. What? Even if you don't vote for her, that's still amazing. And I tell my clients that all the time. Be exactly who you want to be. And if you are the biggest person in your circle, guess what? It's time for you to find a new circle. Because you need women that's going to speak into you, that's on a higher level than you, that can help you grow to be exactly who you need to be. We go through seasons, and you got to know when to let people go and when to hold on to them. So number one, think about, are you living out your dream as a mom? My son told me, Mommy, when I turn 16, can I work for your company? Absolutely. Because he's watching me. He has watched me fall. He has watched me get back up. He's watched me continue to press. He's watched me live out my dream. People are watching you. And they need you to be successful. They need you to be great. They need you to be exactly who God created you to be. So thank y'all for having me and for listening to me. And if I don't leave anything with you, what legacy are you going to leave? What legacy are you going to leave? So I will be at my table today. Any of you who is interested in developing and expanding your business, I do have books over here. The book that I wrote is called Activating Your Gifts, and it's more about personal development. So you can get those as well as my CDs Working on You. Or if you just have any questions about growing you and growing your business, I will be here afterwards. So thank y'all so much for having me. Y'all be blessed. Love y'all, Black women. Give it up for Shanice Wise. I hope you was paying attention. I was paying attention, so I'm going to give you a quick recap. Follow your dreams. Manage your time. Work on your legacy. And know that people are watching. If you're the biggest person in your group, what you need to do? Uh-oh. I was listening too. We are going to keep our speakers coming right on to the mic. And this one,